All right, and we are live. Welcome, DoorGrow hackers, to the DoorGrow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing your business and life, and you're open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses and their owners. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. So, in today's guest, I am hanging out with Andy. Andy, welcome to the show. This is Andy Shinn of Repair Hotline. So, Andy, you've been on the show before. Welcome back.
Great. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here.
The last time we were just getting, and you've made a lot of changes since then and grown, I would imagine, quite a bit. I've seen you at several conferences that we've both been vendors at. So tell us kind of what's been going on with Easy Repair Hotline.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, last time we talked, we were pretty much brand new. I mean, we were maybe a couple of years in, but we really hadn't had much momentum, and we were just kind of getting started in the industry. So, yeah, we've grown a lot over the last couple of years. We've learned a lot in terms of process. I hope to talk to you about some of that today and some of what we're doing. But it's been an exciting couple of years. I think this is an industry, maintenance coordination, that's kind of just taking off in the property management space. And a lot of property managers don't even maybe know this is available, or some haven't tried it yet. So it's definitely a wide open industry, and we're excited to work with a lot of property management companies who I think are seeing value with what we do.
Yeah, great. So, well, let's get into it. Where should we start? So today's topic is implementing EOS, traction, and process improvement at Easy Repair Hotline. So,
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Tell us,
Sure.
where do we start?
Yeah. So I guess maybe just a little bit of history. Over the last year, we've really been working on kind of defining a process and what our product needs to look like. Before that year, we were very sort of customizable. And as a property manager, you'd come in and you'd inform the process as much as we did. And I think that was causing us issues in consistency and performance. So really about a year ago, we said, we've got to define a process that's best in class, that's world class, that we can run for the property manager. And they're not just buying us like a virtual assistant, they're buying our whole process. They're getting that whole package of what we do. So that was really important for us over the last year, and we've made some strides in that direction. Not exactly to the end of where we want to be, but we're moving in that direction. Anyway, about January or so, I'd heard about traction, probably on the DoorGrow site. A lot of property managers are implementing traction, and so I decided to read it. But I did an audiobook, which I do sometimes. I read about a business book a week, and usually I read them, but for whatever reason, I did this on audio, and it just didn't catch with me. So I just kind of went on, and I kept doing my thing. But then I was hearing more and more about traction, and I decided to go to Barnes and Noble and pick up the book, and just the physical book, and see if that made a difference. And it did, because it's the kind of book you need to sit down, open up with a notepad, and really kind of use almost like a workbook. And I knew a few chapters into it that it was going to be something that was going to be really exciting for Easy Repair, because it creates a really structured operating model, which is what we needed. And there's a lot of different books that'll help you do that, but I think traction for a small, medium-sized business is the perfect way to do it. Certainly is a perfect fit for us. So we're only a couple months into that traction piece, coming off, like I say, what we started a year ago, but traction's kind of taking us to that next level. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, I believe every business needs an operating system. There's different systems that every business needs. And initially, the entrepreneur is every system,
Yeah.
when you're first starting out. But there needs to be a planning system, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
There needs to be a support system for most businesses. If you have customers that need to be supported, there needs to be a support system in place. There needs to be a phone system for most businesses. So there's phone communication. I think there's like 5 or 6, maybe 7 different systems that every business needs. And one of the key systems is a planning system. So in most business planning systems, I've studied, the traction and EOS stuff, scaling up. I've worked with Alex Sharfin, who's a brilliant operations mind, and there's a lot of different planning systems out there. One common thread that seems to be through all of them is having, is annual planning, having quarterly goals being broken down into quarterly, and then having goals broken down into 30-day, and then maybe even something broken down into like weekly sort of commitments that the team are working on. And so this is a system that we don't use EOS in our business. I use a different system, but it's similar to what you might find in other systems, which I think all good business planning systems incorporate at least those basic elements. So
It does, and you mentioned sort of taking the goals, like the quarterly goals, and what EOS really tries to do is take your business into 90-day chunks. So you're really running a 90-day cycle of what am I going to do with the business in the next 90 days. So you're setting longer term goals, like here's what's out here that I need to be able to hit, and here's my stretch goal of my 5 or 10 year goal of where I what this company is really going to be like. But then what it does is it takes it down to just 90-day blocks where you're setting targets that the enterprise owns, but then individuals on the leadership team own. Here's what I own for the next 90 days, what they call rocks. And at the end of that 90 days, you've taken your business that next step, and now you plan out your next 90 days. And it really, I think, helps businesses sort of put things in a very doable context, because it can get overwhelming as an entrepreneur when you've got a lot of stuff going on. Maybe you get, especially in a growing business. I mean, where this industry is really, really growing, and to be able to say, here's what's going to happen in the next 90 days, and here's what we have to do in the next 90 days, and here's the goal for the next 90 days. That's a very easy way to sort of take the business forward, rather than thinking, where are we going to be 3 years from now, and trying to plan off of that. That's really difficult. So EOS for our business has been fantastic, and just about 90 days in taking the business into those 90-day chunks. And I have a feeling for property managers, they'd see the same kind of value. When I was a property manager, I would have seen a lot of value in this. And like you mentioned, there's other systems too, but being able to select a system like this, I think, is really important for companies to be successful. So
I think
for us, it's yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say most businesses have no planning system. They're just winging it. The entrepreneur is winging it. And when you do implement a really solid planning system, then what happens is you become able to predict the future. You're creating the future in the present, and it's happening. Eventually it's happening. And that's magic. That's magic for a business to be able to predict and create the future. Now, most entrepreneurs come up with these big goals and big dreams and these endless to-do lists. And then they really, if you look back at all those things, and we've all been there as entrepreneurs, very few of them ever end up coming to fruition. Very few end up getting done. We always bite off more than we can chew. We overestimate our ability to get things done. We get distracted because we take on too many different goals and too many different things. And so what I've noticed in having a planning system in the business is it forces me to limit the things I focus on. It also, and I've been doing this for several years, not just 90 days. I've been doing this for years, and it forces me to limit the pressure that I put on my team as well. Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, we get really pumped up and excited, right? We go to an event, conference, something, and we come back to our team and we're like, we're going to do all this stuff. I just got all these great ideas. And then we get super excited. We throw out some big goal where, we heard some coach or somebody say, write a number down that you want to make, add a 0 to it, add another 0, like go big. Right. And so we've got and then you hear these old phrases like, it's better to aim for the stars and miss than a pile of manure and hit. So the entrepreneurs love that. And they're like, yes, the stars. Right. And so we get so pumped up and excited. And then we walk out of the room and we think, man, we're like, my team must be pumped up. And what they see is a grenade sitting on the middle of the floor with the pin pulled. That's their perception. And they're like, what are we going to do with this? And how are we going to do that? And my life's already hard and doesn't even know how hard I'm already working. And so they look at us like we're kind of crazy. And I think the biggest thing I've noticed with planning is that it allows us to get buy-in from our team, because ultimately I can't do it all on my own. I just don't have that capacity. And you don't as well. Like, you cannot do everything in your business. You cannot answer every phone call at Easy Repair Hotline personally, you know? And so we really rely on our team. And if we don't get their buy-in, if there isn't adoption into any system or into any goal or any outcome that we have, then we end up trying to control people. And controlling as an entrepreneur is not a very comfortable place for us to be controlling our team instead of
No,
inspiring them.
that's a great point though, because entrepreneurs have a different personality, right? It is a different mindset, and most people uh, they want more structure. So you and I are probably really comfortable just working without structure and getting things done.
I
Which,
love
by the way,
chaos.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I could totally live in chaos. Like, I could totally
exactly,
do it, because to me, it's giving me new ideas. I have to
yeah,
adapt. I'm exploring. That's fun and exciting for me. And it makes I've had team members quit because of that, because it makes them feel really uncomfortable and unsafe, because most people crazy high person are maybe SCs on the disc profile. They want stability. They
yeah,
want things to be okay. They want a job where everything stays similar each day, right? I would
yeah.
probably get really bored in a situation like that, right? But yeah,
e-
it
ex-
wraps some constraints around my crazy. And the upside of constraints is that it forces innovation. It allows my team also to innovate because they have an outcome, and I don't care how they get there, as long as they live within our value system. But I don't care what specific actions they take to do it or to get there, and they can create and innovate and come up with ideas that I never would have thought of.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So you're creating structure for your team so they sort of know what to do and what's expected and what the goals are, goals that they can imagine. Because I can imagine a 5 year goal, but my typical employee is not imagining a 5 year goal. They want to know, what are we doing this year? What are we doing in the next
Right.
3 months? So it gives them something very tangible to hold on to. What do we need to accomplish in these next 3 months? But at the same time, the whole operating system relies on employees and leadership at all levels to be able to bring ideas to the table, bring process improvements to the table, and to do things to try and achieve those goals. How are we going to get there? Well, we're not going to get there by just running the show. We're going to get there because we've set these 90-day targets. What specific activities do we need to do, or what do we need to change to get to these targets? So it creates structure, but at the same time, almost counterintuitively, it does create that sort of innovation from employees. Think about, okay, now how do we hit these targets? So I think it's I think it's very very effective. And the cool thing too about traction that I like, it creates what they call a visionary role, and that allows for somebody like me to still have a place in the operating model. I'm not just trying to fit into this operating model and be more structured. It allows a place for the entrepreneur to be that visionary, to be that person who's got the ideas, and maybe he's got the crazy goals, but it tells you, here's how you operate within that model as that person. So that's been a personal help for me as well.
Yeah. So and so I've been really outspoken online. I don't know if you've seen some of my posts, but I've been really outspoken online, somewhat against traction in EOS. I do see
Yeah,
the
I've seen that.
value in certain
Yeah,
pieces of it, but I also think there's a couple of like fundamental flaws. And so I think, and everybody I've talked to that does EOS, they don't do everything. And so I think
right.
that's the benefit of taking a system, is you can take the things that really work well for you and leave out the other stuff. Like, ultimately, if we're really honest, EOS was built as a system to create a really nice business for the people that created EOS.
Sure, of
And you
course.
have to go hire integrators from them, and you need the integrator, and the integrator is like the magical golden key to the whole puzzle, right? And
Yep.
they take on this glorified role that replaces like a COO or operations manager, and they take on the executive assistant role, which is a critical role for an entrepreneur. And they kind of squeeze all of that as this layer in between, in their accountability chart, which is an org chart, between the visionary, which is the entrepreneur, and the entire team, which in reality would be probably the most dangerous thing to ever do with your company ever, to give somebody that much power and control, because they don't even need you anymore. They can just chop that top piece off and the whole org chart works fine without you. And which then means they can charge whatever they freaking want. They'll come back to you after a year, after they know and run everything in the business and everybody's loyal to them. They can say, I want 500,000 a year. I want a percentage of the company. What are you going to do? Replace them? Right. So I think ultimately the best way to foundationally build every business is around the entrepreneur, because we're not all like the quintessential or, perfect visionary. So I've noticed in property management, there's different sort of roles. So I've noticed there's some property managers that run property management business owners. Some entrepreneurs are more accountants. They're more accounting minded. They're more on the financial side. They're more doing things by the book. Then you've got some that are more relationship oriented. They're more about people, relationships. They love, and then some are more sales oriented, right? So some maybe should keep and retain some of the property manager type of role. Some maybe should be the sales or BDM person in the business, and that might be the last thing they give up. Or some may be the operations person and doing systems and coordinating things. And so ultimately, the great thing about having a business is instead of building it to somebody else's system, we can build it around ourselves and make ourselves feel like Iron Man with our super suit. We can have the business that makes us feel amazing and supported, and fulfilled, that we love doing every day. And ultimately, that's the one fundamental foundational piece that I would change in that system, to build around it. And I think everything would extend out from that. And so, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that makes total sense. I'll tell you how we're doing that for the accountability chart.
Yeah, I want to hear
We're
how
not.
you're using it.
Yeah, we're not. First of all, we're self-implementing, so there's nobody else in the picture, but it's working out well for us. And maybe this is probably just advantageous to us. It just so happens to be that I'm in this business with Michael, my stepson, and he's the perfect integrator, right? He's the perfect operations
He's an
leader.
operations guy.
That's exactly that's what he does, and I've done those things, but I'm not as good at that as he is.
Right.
I'm more of the visionary. So we've sort of taken ourselves and taken each of us taken that role. So I'm the visionary. He's the integrator. There's still a lot of overlap. So it's maybe not as clean as what it would look like on that accountability chart. And it's not like there's one person reporting to the visionary and that's the only contact the visionary has, as you might kind of look at it visually. No,
business isn't ever perfectly clean.
No, exactly. And at our current size, I mean, we're growing, but at our current size, I'm actually filling a couple of the boxes that would be on the next level down, like some of the financial and the CPA type or the CFO type roles. I'm filling that as well. So I'm filling a couple of the boxes. So that's kind of how we're using the accountability charts to make sure that somebody's in each of those boxes, even if that's Michael or me overlapping. As part of the process, we also added a couple of folks to our leadership team. We had one operations lead. We brought that up to 3 to give them very specific responsibilities within the organization. So when you look at our accountability chart, you will see that visionary and integrator, but it's not quite what you kind of described. It's a lot different than that. And then next level down, we've got our operations leads, and then you've got me on a couple of the boxes at that next level down, filling those roles until we're large enough to fill those roles with other folks. So that's kind of how we're using the chart. I think the risks that you brought out are very real, but I think for us, and maybe it is a little unique with me and Michael being a partnership in the business. It's those roles have actually worked out really well for us.
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur needs an operational person to their side. I mean, every visionary entrepreneur does need an operationally minded person. They're just the yin to the yang. They're the opposite that we need to wrap some constraint and some managerial prowess towards what we as visionaries would not be good at, right? We need that person in that role in the business. And so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think ultimately, another key takeaway for the listeners is that it is important to have an org chart. I mean, there's a lot of people saying, do away with org charts, or they're saying this is the ideal org chart that has to exist and you need to build towards it. I don't believe there's an ideal org chart or an ideal situation, but I do believe that that it is important to have clear, clear levels of responsibility to understand who reports to who. You can't serve two masters. You can't have somebody reporting to two people and things and everybody be confused as to who their supervisor is and who they report to, and have a company that runs well. It just doesn't tend to happen in reality. Like, there, even if you don't create it, it starts to exist organically. People have people they trust as an authority, people that they go to, and to make it actually clear and say this is how it is, makes everyone feel more at ease. It makes it a lot more comfortable. And then attaching to that their roles, and what is their job description. And I think that's where it gets really specific, is every time we add a new team member, our role changes if they are doing anything that impacts us in any way. So most of our initial hires impact us directly. Any executive team members, any assistants, they're taking something off our plate. And so our job description changes. So we need to update that. Their job description changes every time we bring on somebody else that works with them on that team. And so it's, businesses are a fluid thing. Every time you hire somebody, and if you're growing and scaling, it's always happening, that top level team is going to be in flux initially until that's somewhat stable. And then the lower levels are going to have that flux and that change and all those variations, and their job descriptions need to be updated and tight. And over time, what I've noticed also is every single team member, as the company grows and scales, starts to do less, not more, if it's being done well. Because as the company scales and grows, my job description gets narrower. Like my head of fulfillment, his job description gets narrower. He used to be doing all the content and content gathering and client communication and like everything. And his job gets narrower and narrower as we slice pieces off and give them to new people, so that he has leverage. And so that's how the kind of the pyramid sort of grows and scales, is everyone's slicing pieces off and doing less and less, but they get better at it. And they're able to focus more on what they really enjoy if you're doing it right. And so then they're even better at it and more excited. And over time, they get better and improve. And so a lot of people think you can just pop somebody into a role if you've got the processes documented. But I think there's something to be said about long-term employees and keeping people as long as you possibly can. I don't think you can beat that in a business.
No, absolutely. And I'll tell you though, as you're growing, and that's what you just said is exactly why you want to have an operating system in place as you're growing, is because you do have those changing roles. And if you don't have that built, you said something like it's gonna happen anyway. It is. It's gonna happen by itself, but it's not gonna happen the way you want it to. And that's true of the
Right.
processes. It's true of the job roles. It's true of the culture in your organization. All of that stuff's happening. The only question is, are you directing it? And we're we've really been trying to direct it over the years, and finally with Traction, we found a way that we said this really sort of organizes what we're trying to do, and it's been very helpful. I'll talk a little bit about our values, if I can, which is one piece of Traction that we sort of had a head start on. We were already working on our values. We had set up an initial set of values a few years ago when we started the company, and they were sort of just me and Michael put them together, and they were just about having fun in the workplace and that sort of thing. And I'd say they were lightweight values. They didn't have a lot of meaning behind them. And since we just put them together, the employees that had come on since didn't have any stake in them, so to speak. So last year, last December, we brought in a team of three employees, and we had them work as a committee to put together our values as an organization. And we wanted them to focus on two things. One, what are we doing now? Because we felt like we had a pretty healthy culture. And then two, what are we aspiring towards? What are we aspiring our culture to look like? And so those three went out, talked to all of our existing employees, and over the course of several months, ended up putting together our values, which fit in perfectly timing wise with Traction, because we had that in place at the same time we were implementing Traction. But that's so important for any company to do, even if you're a small company, put together those values, because now we're able to look at how we deal with customers, how we interact with employees, how we do our job, how we set up processes. We can look at all of those in the context of our values. Is this consistent with what we're trying to be as an organization, with the culture that we're trying to put together? So that's been really helpful. And that's like I said, that's a part of Traction we were sort of working on, and you can do it without doing Traction, but it's a big part of what Traction brings to the table as well. So very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so touching on values, I think it's important to have values in the business, because without those, you can't even have team members that believe what you believe, which I think is the most foundational thing in building a team. If you don't have believers, then you have people that are just there to get paid. And if they're just there to get paid, they don't they're going to be B players. They're not going to care about quality the way that you do. They're not going to care about the results. They just care about getting the paycheck. And so I think it's a very dangerous thing to not really ensure that you have values set and that your team members are aware of what those are. And I think it's very easy once you get clarity on your own values as a company. And this is one of the exercises I take clients through when we take them on, is to get clear on their values. But if you don't have clarity on your values, then it's impossible to have a company that displays them. It just won't happen. But once you get that clarity, it's very easy to look at every single team member and just ask a real simple question: do they share my values? It's like, it becomes really obvious. It's like a yes or no. Like, if you know these team members at all, you're like, do they value integrity? Do they value doing things on, being on time, or whatever it might be that you care about as an entrepreneur? And if the answer is a no, they have to go, right? They just, because they're hurting your business, and they're hurting your momentum, and they're hurting your results in the business. I know when I got clear on some of my values as an organization, and what my purpose was as a human being, and my purpose for my business, over a very short period of time, I think I fired half my team. I just let them go. I let go of contractors. I brought in new people, and the entire temperature of the company leveled up. Because I think what we do as entrepreneurs is we often trade the business we really deep down want for the business we can have. So we have this business, we take on the properties we can, anything we can. We go out to far areas and manage properties too far where we can. We take on team members that can fill a role instead of what we really want. And so we're doing the business that we can instead of the business that we should, or the business that we deserve. And it's a huge difference. Having a business that you can have versus a business that you really love are two completely different businesses. And most businesses, especially when they get into the 200 to 400 door category, a lot of them at that stage have built a team and a system and everything around them, I've noticed, that is still with the old mindset they had as a solopreneur. And it's painful. And this is probably the most painful stage I've seen for entrepreneurs in the property management industry, is that 200 to 400 door category. 50, 60 door category can be quite painful too, but they're usually solopreneurs at that point. So the pain isn't as widespread. So
That's right.
yeah.
The thing about this too, Jason, so whether you talk about traction, E-Myth, Clockwork, other books that'll talk to you about how do you pull yourself out of the business all the time. Because when you're an entrepreneur and you're growing, if you don't have a structure for how that growth is going to happen and what your business model needs to look like, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to be working 90 hours a week, and you're going to be on call 24/7. You're going to be answering the phones all the time. That's just part of what a lot of entrepreneurs do as they grow. And if you get a system like Traction, I think that helps you pull yourself away and be the real leader of the company, and not the doer of everything within the company. So I think Traction's a good way to do that. And for me, I mean, I've been able to sort of create this role that I think is comfortable for me, and that's not overwhelming. That it's something that I can do. It's the kinds of things I like to do, and at the same time, Michael, he's got something he likes to do, and our operations leads, they're in roles that they're very comfortable with. They like to do that, and I think you take that all the way down your organization, and if you structure that and you give everybody a piece that they're good at, that they can do, that they have the ability to do, and that they want to do, that's going to make them very effective. And that's a lot about what Traction and other operating systems are really about. The other thing, though, I wanted to touch on something you said a little bit about. We can set minimum standards for people who work for us, right? And a lot of people get into that mindset of, oh, well, you've got to hit this minimum. If you hit this minimum, and if you're not hitting it, you're in trouble, and you've got to hit this minimum.
Right.
And what happens is people hit that minimum. But what you don't understand is you're losing an extraordinary amount of discretionary effort that you could have had from that employee if they were on
Mhm.
board with your values, if they understood the goals and they were buying into those
Absolutely.
goals and they wanted to reach them. So now their performance isn't the minimum. Their performance is up here. You're not even worried about managing the minimum because everybody's on board with your culture. Everybody's on board with the goals. Nobody's around here. It's just a matter of how much discretionary effort they're providing. Because I worked in call centers for a large organization, before I became a property manager and before I started Easy Repair. And call centers are the worst of this because it's about setting up these metrics around handle times or
Yep. Time between
compliance.
tickets. They track
Yeah,
time between how long you take to write notes, so that
yeah.
like
When,
everything.
when you
Yeah.
took your break, you were supposed to take it at 7:14, but you took it at 7:17, so you're only 98% compliant. All this stuff, and all you're doing is managing somebody to hit a minimum standard, and that's what you're going to get. When I came
Mhm.
into some centers, we were able to change that whole mindset and say, yeah, we've got to measure on the outside of those things. But what we really need to do is motivate our team towards a common goal. We were able to improve service levels immediately in a very large contact center. Immediately, a contact center people thought was understaffed, that we weren't answering the phone quick enough, go in and
Yeah.
almost immediately just by setting targets and getting away from this sort of minimum standards, changing people's mindsets and getting people to step up. And people will give you discretionary effort if they buy into what you're doing, if they're on board with it. So, um,
Yeah.
as a small business owner, I think a lot of us miss that, and we do get into the okay, we've got to hit these standards, or man, it's busy, we're not getting everything done, we've got to up our standard to how many X number of widgets we're going to make, or whatever
Right.
our
Right.
performance metric is, and that's fine, right? You got to have goals and standards, but what you really need to do is motivate people to want to step up and handle the work and be a part of your company because they buy into your company. They're excited to get up on Monday and go to work because they like what they're doing and they like what you're trying to accomplish. So that's a big part of this, and Traction's helped us do this. I think there's a lot of other ways that you can implement those types of things, but yeah, Traction gives you a way to show each employee on a 90-day basis something that's very relatable to everybody. Here's what we're trying to accomplish over 90 days. Can you help us do that? And to a person, our teams has told me, I mean, I did small meetings with everybody on our team. Yes, yeah, we can do that. We will do that. We'll step up if we have to, and we'll do that, and we'll make that happen. And I think you'd be surprised how people will respond to you when you can bring them a real um, visual, structured account of what we're trying to do with the company, and get it out of the framework that we were talking about earlier, where it's in my head that I know what I want the company to do, and I've got this pie in the
Right.
sky. That
Which
doesn't
changes
help anybody.
probably every day
Right,
for entrepreneurs.
exactly. It
Yeah.
doesn't help anybody because it does seem a little scattered because it does change sometimes, and nobody can really relate to these ideas I've got in my head about where the business is going.
Yeah.
Traction brings it to a level where everybody in the organization can understand, can buy in, can get excited about it, and and they can also put the pieces together because they can see in our 5-year goal, they can see, oh, okay, well, this is what we need to do 90 days in this next 90-day chunk. And if we do this and we keep doing our 90-day chunks, we're going to hit that 5-year target. So even though it seems like it's way out there, we're going to hit that, but we're going to hit it 90 days at a time. So if I were looking at Traction and saying, what's the biggest single thing we've got out of it? There's a lot of things in there, but it's the ability to chunk that business in 90 days and to have a very good, very solid structure.
Yeah,
The
and that really, for any business planning system, that is one of the most basic things. I mean, I've done Wake Up Warrior. I There's the 90-day year, which is a system out there.
Yeah,
There's Scaling Up, the Rockefeller Habits, that system. There's EOS, Traction, like all of these things. So
that's right.
we run a system that internally we call DoorGrow OS, and it's our operating system. And I've taken what I feel like is the best of all the systems out there. It may in the future, I don't want to be the vaporware guy, but it may in the future be a system that we share with property managers. I do have an intention, to help create the ultimate system out there. But I think
Yeah.
what you're saying is very valid. So I don't know if you know this, but you and I have a little bit of a similar background. I don't have the
Okay.
scale that you've had at AAA, but I was the head and did all the hiring, was the lead supervisor and head of a call center for the largest private broadband internet service provider in California. And then I left there as a big fish in a small pond to work at Verizon in their business technical support center for DSL. And was the low guy on the totem pole, but I got paid a lot more when I went there, right?
Yeah,
And I've been in the call center environment. I've been the supervisor doing the hiring. I've taken the supervisor calls as well, but I've done all the low level work. And yeah, and when the funny thing is, I noticed like when you have a system and you gear it just towards those metrics, people figure out how to game the system. I'm
that's right.
smart. I figured out how to manipulate the system because it was all about speed and getting things done faster. Well, I figured out how to I used a piece of software that could do macros that would pre-populate tickets, because I noticed we were only getting about 3 types of tickets, and we had to fill out this horrible piece of software, Verizon, that was like detailing everything that we did and what we said and had to be done. And they're really mainly like 3, maybe 4 types of problems. So I created this macro script thing, and it would just pre-populate the tickets, and I had my tickets done, and I was back on a call like right away. And I got
Nice.
really good at closing out tickets, like legitimately, so that we were helping people. But I then started sharing with other people that were struggling, because if you're not making your metrics, you get nervous, like they're afraid
That's
they're
right.
going to get axed. And then, but here's the funny thing: supervisors, they don't think people messing with the system or doing things differently, especially if it wasn't their idea. And so, yeah, I had supervisors that like wanted to challenge that or felt threatened by the fact that I optimized and made things better. So, and I think this is what, as entrepreneurs, this is what we do. We're always looking for ways to support our team. We're looking for ways to improve speed, improve accuracy, help them be better. And if we give our team members that ability to feel entrepreneurial, which is where instead of micromanaging them, we give them our values, but we give them our outcomes. We give them outcomes to work towards, and we let them see what they could do. I've been really amazed when we've gone into planning sessions with my team, and I say, here's the things that I want. What ideas do you have to help us get there? And my graphic designer has a completely different view and perspective from her angle of the business than I have from my top down. My head of fulfillment and content person has a completely different view and perspective from that side than I do from the top down. And their ideas are great. I'm always amazed. I'm like, we have all these brainstormed ideas. I'm like, yes, I didn't even think of that. And so I think we also, as entrepreneurs, we become the emperor with no clothes if we don't have a planning system, because they're all just saying yes, and they're just getting their paycheck, and they're just doing what they're told, and then they're not innovating, and they're not feeling alive, and they're not really enjoying being part of that organization. And you're the boss that everyone's complaining about, and that on the weekend, and they just live for the weekend. But what you said earlier is about discretionary time. I want team members that even on the weekends, they're thinking about how they could be better. They're thinking about the job. They're excited about what they're doing. They're studying and learning new stuff because they're excited about what they get to do in the business, and they feel passionate about being able to be part of something bigger. And they like that feeling and camaraderie of being on a team and having a culture. And it's a very different thing.
I'll
So,
tell you a quick story along those lines. So we're doing a lot in the process piece. So there's 6 components to traction, and one of those is process, and we've been spending a lot of time on that because we want to. I mentioned a year ago, we want to really formalize and our
mm-hmm.
process where it's consistent, same way every time for every company. With you can customize things like your emergency criteria you can customize, but you couldn't customize when we follow up with a tenant after repair. That we're going to do that the same for everybody. So there's things
Right.
in our process we want to be the same. So when we started Traction, we're also used eMyth and Checklist Manifesto is a great book as well, and
Mm-hmm.
it talks about how are we going to document our processes in a way that our team has all the support that they need for the process. And so we did that. We put out some really cool documentation for our 7 key processes, all in checklist style, but visual checklists. You don't have to fill anything out, so that any team member, even new team members, can immediately walk into a process and know, okay, these are the steps to do for that, for example. But when we rolled that out, almost immediately, one of the team members who does most of the work on one of our front end processes, part of the dispatch processes, was able to come in and say, "Look, I've been doing this process. It's working fine. Uh, if we did this, we'd be even quicker at this. We could get these work orders dispatched even quicker if we made these small changes." And because we had it checklisted out, and he could even see what's the next stage in the process and what are they doing, he was able to put that all together and say, here's a fix. Here's something that we can improve. We implemented it the same day, and so it definitely drives people to be more engaged in the operation. They're not just there to do your ABC work that you've asked them to do. They're buying into the goals that we're trying to accomplish. They're buying into the process you're rolling out. They're trying to be part of that, and we've seen a lot of that. A lot of folks at the very front line, and in this particular case, this is an employee who'd only been with us a couple months. People feeling really comfortable to be able to help us towards these goals now that they understand what we're trying to do, and that it's really put in sort of understandable 90-day blocks. Here's what we're trying to do, and everybody's sort of going to be more likely to be on board and jump up and say, "Hey, let's do this differently because this is going to improve our operation."
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any problem internally in a business, there's one of three things that must be missing. Either there isn't a clear outcome, which a planning system helps solve. There isn't accountability. It wasn't clear who was supposed to be doing it or who was responsible for the outcome. And there isn't transparency. Nobody can see who's doing what or see that people are or are not getting things done, or nobody has clarity on where the business is at financially or how it's working. And I think having a planning system, having regular meetings, it creates this culture that allows accountability, allows transparency, allows responsibility, allows there to be a clear drive towards outcomes. And most businesses, they have no clear outcome. They're not working towards a clear outcome. They're just managing day-to-day fires, and they're just kind of shooting in the dark. And that's how most small businesses operate. And it financially looks that way in their business too. There isn't consistency in the financial side as well.
Yeah,
So
look,
I think
Jason,
every business also needs a financial system, which is part of planning. I'll just throw that out there, which I'm a big fan of profit first, and there's probably others, but the business.
hey, first of all, big plug to Profit First. Yeah, big plug to Profit First. Changed my business 2 years ago, so absolutely, big fan of Profit First and Clockwork. He's written several great books for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, you were talking about how most small business owners don't do these things, and I was in that same boat. Even though I'd come from a very sort of structured environment from AAA, when I was a property manager, that's how I ran my property management company. I joke, but it's not really a joke. I didn't make any money in my property management company until I sold it. I mean, that was the company I ran. And when we started Easy Repair, we said we were going to do this one a little bit differently, and we started getting into systems and reading different books about structure and about how to have an operating model and how to have profitability. But it really wasn't until, like I said, 2 years ago, we read Profit First, that just transformed our finances completely. It was amazing. And then here, I feel like traction for us is going to be kind of that next turning point. That a couple of years from now, I'll be talking about how we found traction a couple of years ago. So I think it's kind of an evolution of a small business. You learn different things as you go. But for any small business owner, even if you're starting up, whether it's traction or another system, get an operating system in place. This would have been so much easier for us a couple of years ago if we'd have implemented it, but that's okay. We're implementing it now, and it's never too early. I don't care how small you are, or if you don't have employees yet, but you plan on growing, get it in place.
Yeah. So for those listening, what do you want them to take away from this?
Yeah, hopefully some learnings from me. What I just said about my own property management experience when I was a property manager. Hopefully you can make some money before you decide to sell your book of business. Hopefully you can make money along the way. And there's a lot of property managers who are, but the ones who are, they have that structure, they have that operating system, they have the financial plan in place. And so what I'm advocating for is that do that as a property manager, implement, whether it's traction or another operating system, implement it. Definitely read Profit First. It will change your life, absolutely, and do that going forward. Because even if you're small, even if you don't think you're there yet, even if you think, well, I'm just a one-person show or whatever, or one or two-person show, it doesn't matter. This structure is going to help you so much, and it's going to keep you from working those 80-hour weeks. If there's PMs out there, well, I know there are PMs out there working 80-hour weeks, because that's kind of what I was doing when I was a PM. You don't need to. And even if you're not ready to hire right now, some of these operating systems are going to help you structure in a way that you won't be working 80-hour weeks anymore. You'll figure out how to handle the work without actually having to just be available all the time. And hopefully you'll determine too. There's some self showings work that you can do, maybe some maintenance coordination work that you can do, and some other things that you can outsource. But you're definitely, even without doing any of that, just by structuring your work in a system like Traction, you're going to find that your job becomes easier, more manageable, and you're going to understand exactly what you need to be doing in the business every day.
So one thing I want everybody to take away from this too is that if you see that a business owner, I mean, this is rare in businesses in the US or everywhere, really. This is rare that a business will implement a planning system, implement profit first, have these pieces in place. So I think every listener should feel a lot safer with using a company if they hear that they have these pieces in place. So Andy, props to you for getting these pieces in place over at Easy Repair
Oh,
Hotline.
thank you.
I'm sure those listening will feel a lot safer with using their services if they haven't considered it before. And because it creates more consistency in the outcomes of the business, it creates more reliability. And really, that's what people are buying from all of us is safety and certainty. That's what they
Right.
want. They want results. And you're much more able, it's far easier to deliver results when you have a predictable system to create that magic and to create the future. So, Andy, appreciate you coming on the show. How can they check you out? How can they
Oh,
connect
thanks
with
for hey, thanks
your
for
business?
having me. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, our website is probably the best way to start taking a look at us. It's Easy Repair Hotline LLC.com. Easy as the letters easy. Easy Repair Hotline LLC.com, and they can see all our products and an easy way to set up a meeting with me or just to send us a note through contact form. So, yeah, I'd love to have people follow up with us.
Perfect. All right. And so I appreciate you, Andy, coming on the show, and hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Hey, thanks, Jason. It was great. Appreciate it.
All right. So you can check them out. It is EZ, the letters E is in Edward, Z is in Zulu, Easy Repair Hotline LLC.com. So check them out. So, and if you are a property management entrepreneur, you're feeling stressed out, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not getting the results that you want, you don't feel like you have consistency, you feel like things are crazy, you feel like you're on the financial roller coaster, you may just need to start with getting clarity on yourself. This is where I start clients out when we start working with them, when we start coaching and consulting a property management business. We start them with figuring themselves out first, because really, Andy is the center of that solar system. I'm the center of my business. And if you change and help them get clarity on what they love doing, on what they should be doing, on where their time is being drained, on where their energy is being drained, and we align the business around the entrepreneur, every business will be very different from each other. Every business will be unique, and it will support you, and you will feel alive, and you will feel in momentum, which is what we crave as entrepreneurs. The rest of the world wants to be happy or sad. They're like focused on that. We want momentum. We want to feel alive. And if we don't have that, we feel in constraint. We feel overwhelmed. We feel frustrated. We feel stressed. We feel stuck. That's hell for us as entrepreneurs. So if you're stuck in a little bit of hell, maybe reach out and we'll see if we can get you unstuck. So I'm Jason Hull of DoorGrow. You can check us out at doorgrow.com. Make sure and join our Facebook community, our Facebook group. You can get to that by going to doorgrowclub.com. And if you feel like your property management website is maybe a little bit dated, it's older than 2 to 3 years, maybe it's 5 years old or older, it might be time to test that website and see how much money it's really leaking and costing you. You can go to doorgrow.com/quiz, doorgrow.com/quiz, and take our website quiz. And most websites that go through it get an F grade in terms of conversion, which means you are losing deals and money right now. It's probably costing you tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in lost deals and lost business. So, so check that out. So again, I'm Jason Hull with the DoorGrow Show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to check us out on iTunes or on YouTube and like and subscribe. And where you possible, leave us a testimonial or a review. We would really appreciate that. And that is it. I am out. So bye, everyone, to our mutual growth. Until next time.